Welcome to the Global Network webinars. My name is Alexander Loschke and I will be moderating this webinar today together with my colleagues Yushi Zhang and Sean Lovell. Today we have with us Gabriel Gamez from the United Nations Statistics Division, who will talk about improving the resilience and agility of national statistical systems to meet the post-COVID-19 data needs in order to recover better. This project, funded through the so-called development account, will span the years 2022 to 2025 and will be jointly implemented by the 5 UN regional commissions, the UN Environment Programme, UNEP, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, and by the UN Statistics Division, UNSD. The project aims to strengthen the institutional and organizational frameworks, supporting efficient and effective governance and coordination mechanisms of national statistical systems, as well as to enhance the resilience and agility of statistical operations by taking advantage of innovative data collection methods, new data sources, and advanced technology. Gabriel's presentation will be followed by an open discussion session, and we would like to invite you all to express your needs and to comment on cooperation opportunities. We hope to hear from many of you what you expect from this project and what your needs are. So let me now introduce our speaker. Gabriel has been interregional advisor on the organization and management of national statistical systems at the United Nations Statistics Division in New York since 2015. He is responsible for the implementation and monitoring of various global initiatives and programs aimed at modernizing the institutional frameworks and governance of national statistical systems in support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and other international and national development policies. Gabriel started his professional career at the Swiss Federal Statistical Office in 1991 and in 2004 was appointed Chief Statistician of the European Free Trade Association, or EFTA. From 2010 to 2015, he served as Regional Statistical Advisor at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe in Geneva. Gabriel graduated in Economics and Social Sciences and holds a postgraduate certificate in statistics. And before I hand over to Gabriel, let me just mention, as always, a couple of practical things. We will first hear the presentation and we'll have then the discussion session at the end. Please feel free to write comments or questions into the meeting chat at any time. And during the discussion session, we would like to invite you to use the raise my hand function of Teams so we can give you the floor and you can then comment or ask questions. If you wish, we can also ask the question for you, just let us know. At that point, we will also allow you to unmute yourself and also switch on the camera. That is right now not possible. As always, this Global Network webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Global Network of Data Officers and Statisticians at yammer.com/UNStats. And we invite you to continue the discussions on the Global Network after the webinar. So now over to Gabriel. Gabriel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex, also for the introduction. And you are right. I mean, the session today is not so much about telling you about new developments and you asking questions, but it's more me telling you about a capacity building project that is about to start, that we are in the phase of designing, and you to mention what are your needs, what were your challenges, issues, but also maybe good practices and success stories that we could eventually use in the implementation of this program. So actually, I would like to hear the countries, but also the resident coordinators offices and other partner organizations about what we could do together in order to help countries to have more resilient and agile national statistical systems to meet, of course, post-COVID-19 data needs, but I would say all kinds of disaster data needs to recover better, because this time we have the COVID-19, but we had in the past already some other big disaster. Could have been economic crisis, could have been natural disaster, and so on. And really, we're facing this need for better data to recover better. So,
Gabriel,
if I
uh,
yes,
sorry to interrupt you.
I can share my screen now. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can share your screen if you wish, and please also your camera if you want. At least I didn't see you. Maybe others saw you, but I see you now.
You
It's
see
all
me
good.
now?
Yeah.
Okay,
I,
that's good. That's good that you see me now, right? Okay, now that I have clicked on different things to have my camera back. Okay, here it is. So I'm going up to the main slide. Here it is, the main one. You see it, right, Alex? Can you confirm that? Do you see my slide?
yes.
Okay, very good. So let's go for the second one. I mean, the impact and challenges of COVID-19 on official statistics. I mean, I don't want now to speak too much about the COVID-19, but of course, as many disaster situations, official statistics was strongly impacted and had to go through many challenges. From the side of the production, so on our side, basically, the problem is that regular statistical operations that in a traditional production process relies heavily on face-to-face methods were severely affected, right? And of course, this hampered the production of social, economic, and environment statistics that we have the mandate to produce on the monthly, sometimes quarterly, or annual basis. It was even, I would say, more severe because this COVID-19 happened around actually the 2020 housing and population census that still in many countries are based on face-to-face data collection. And this, of course, it's a big issue since such census operation is happening every 10 years in general. On the side of the demand, but of course, I mean, the production and the demand, they merge somewhere. There was the need for regular statistics to monitor short-term economic, social, and environmental policies. Everything did not stop with COVID-19. We still needed some statistics that we usually need, and maybe even more in this situation because we wanted to follow up on how the economy is making. Are children going back to school, or are they going to school? What is the impact on prices, for example, and so on. We wanted to inform and continue to inform progress towards the SDGs. They are not gone, right? The SDGs are there, 2030, that's the objective. And we need to monitor progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. But then on top of that, we had emerging demands for specific statistics, for statistics and indicators that we have not produced in the past because they are specific to inform COVID-19 impact, but also recovery policies. So of course, this is a challenge because we're in a situation where it's more difficult to produce, but on the other hand, the demand is still there. And on top of that, we have more demand than what we had in the past or what we used to have in the past. So now, once that we have understood that really well, I want to say just a few words about the development accounts. The development accounts, because you will see these DA, and you have seen DA in the past. We had a very important one called DA Statistics and Data, with actually 10 entities of the Secretariat that just terminated now. And some of you asked me many times, what is a development account? A development account is a capacity development program of the United Nations, or if I would say even of the United Nations Secretariat, aiming at enhancing capacity in the priority areas of the UN development agenda. So it's not only for statistics. When we say DA, development accounts, It's actually for all UN development policies. So including the SDGs, but of course, including also monitoring progress, so the statistics. So the DA is basically funded and implemented by the entities of the UN Secretariat. So what are the entities of the UN Secretariat? Is DESA, UNCTAD, UNEP, UN Habitat, UNADC, UNODC, the 5 regional commissions all together are implementing. When I say these are, of course, when it's about statistics, it would be UNSD. When it's about statistics, it's the Economic Commission for Africa, the Statistics Division, right? We understand that. And the 14th tranche of this development account, we have annual tranches now. The 14th tranche has a specific project that addresses the economic, social, and environmental challenges emanating from the COVID-19 crisis and support developing countries to recover faster and better. So when this one came up and we were invited to submit proposal, of course, we thought that statistics here has a beautiful role to play because we are monitoring the impact with our statistics and indicator, monitoring the impact of the COVID-19, and we are best in a position, if not to produce, at least to coordinate the production of data, statistics, and indicators that would help our policymakers to make us recover better. I mean, if we look a little bit more generally, what are the context and the trigger of this project? We remember, so we know that we got a mandate, and we are not only doing this because we think it's fun, even though it's not much fun, right? We would have preferred to be without the COVID-19, but there is a clear call of the 75th session of the General Assembly, so basically last year, to leveraging SDG mechanisms and instruments, including statistics and data, important, to inform the COVID-19 response and recovery policy. So we're fully aligned, right? We have the mandate of the General Assembly to work on that. What are the objective, of course, of our DA14 on statistics and data is to improve the resilience and agility of national statistical systems to meet COVID-19 data needs to recover better. Now, I mean, you see that, I mean, our objective of our specific program on statistics is well aligned with the call of the General Assembly, but also well aligned with the general objective of the DA14. We have, of course, 2 SDG targets, but we have much more. At the end, we will have more. But in general, we have 2 that are very important, that are related to mean of implementation. It's 1718 and 1719, right? One is availability of high quality and disaggregated indicators, and this is needed in this situation, and build on existing initiatives to complement and go beyond GDP. We know that issues of inequality, issues related to genders are sometimes becoming even more critical. I don't want now to go into the detail. I'm a statistician. My role is not to comment a situation, is to provide the figures and to analyze the figure about the situation. But it seems that, of course, some of these elements or issues are getting even more extreme during such kind of crisis. So the budget is rather small, and you are going to laugh, especially if we have colleagues here from the World Bank and from Eurostat and others. I mean, we have USD, so US dollars, 3 million for the year 2022 and 2025. Let me nevertheless explain to you that the difference with many other big programs is that the 8 entities of the Secretariat, so basically you can see the line under the 5 UN regional commissions, UNEP, UNODC, and UNSD, are putting their human resources in the program. So basically what we will have to pay is eventually, for example, for travel, for IT infrastructure, for some consultancies, but our own costs. So basically the skills, the human resources, the capability is coming from the eight entities. But of course, as we have done it also for the DA10, and this was amazing, we are not working alone or in isolation. And this is why also I have this presentation to warn you already that something is going to come, and to see if there is an interest from other organizations to join us or us to join them to work together. So of course, we will heavily rely on the UN resident coordinator system and country teams statistician. That's an important point. We are going to work with them, but we are also working with partner organizations within and outside the United Nations system. So basically, we will try as much as possible to cross-fertilize with others in order actually to have a multiplication effect on our project with the $3 million. And in general, I mean, some evaluations say that at the end, we multiply by 3 or 4 our amount. So if it's by 4, we can already get to something that is about $12 million effective injection of money in this program. What are the target countries and level of operations? So of course, we are going to focus not only in developing and transition, we say countries here, but it's developing countries and what we call also sometimes transition economies, but in particular, of course, the seeds, the small islands, developing states, the least developing countries, but also the landlocked developing countries. These ones are of particular for us. They are really our target countries, but the beneficiary countries are much wider than these one. And we are going to work at the local. This is maybe not in general our strength, but we will try to do as much as possible also involve at the local or subnational level, the national, the sub-regional, the regional, and global level. So we're going to try to work at all these levels, again, to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of our program. Implementing modalities and arrangements. The project builds on successes and lessons learned from another program, a little bit similar with more money, which was a DA10 statistics and data that just terminated now, and we are in the phase of the evaluation of this program. We have a bunch of evaluators there coming and visiting us and asking us questions, and their recommendations will be included also in this DA14 statistics and data. We have 8 entities implementing jointly and capitalizing on their individual technical expertise and comparative advantages. We have the chance to have global organizations, specific program organizations at global level also, but the regional commissions that know better than the global ones sometimes about what's happening, what are the issues at regional level. Demand-driven and promoting South-South cooperation. This is not new, but we'll try to do it as much as we can. This is very important. Build on existing initiatives I just told you before and cross-fertilizing with other capacity development initiatives, also from partners outside UN agencies and outside UN agencies. And the last line actually is going along this, right? How this program or project is structured. We have seen already when we're developing, we would say the concept note, and it would be nice to hear from you later on, about 3 main, I don't want to call them components, but dimensions. The first one, to help and support resilience and agility of national statistical systems are the institutional environment of national statistical system, and how national statistical systems, and in particular national statistical offices, are collaborating with other producers of data, or what we call also sometimes the data community or the national data ecosystem. So it's all about the governance and coordination of the national statistical systems, but also partnership and collaboration between the National Statistical Office and the overall national data community. Usually we put a name to that and we call it data stewardship. We'll work on data stewardship. We'll try to see how we can improve data stewardship, how we can make it more efficient in order that all together, not only the National Statistical System stricto sensu, but the national data community can deliver better, right, and address the needs. The second dimension is about data sources and data collection methods. This is something that is rather important. Of course, we will continue to work on integration and innovation of innovative and non-traditional data sources, such as, and we tend to forget it sometimes, administrative records, even though we have already a couple of activities at the moment going on. So we're not going to overlap too much, but it's very important that we cross-fertilize with these initiatives going on. Big data, web scraping, geospatial information, and something that is not mentioned here, and I'm very sorry for that, is also citizen-generated data. We have noticed that during a crisis, sometimes also for natural disasters, where access to some valleys, for example, or so remote area are not possible, it's sometimes very important to have citizens there that can report and data can be used for the production of statistics, often combined with other data sources, like, for example, geospatial information, right? In cases, for example, of some, for example, natural disasters. But we have also other issues, and this was mentioned before for our regular, I would say, compilation of I would say more or traditional acquisition of data. It's alternative data acquisition methods to conduct surveys and censuses. In some cases, in many cases, we will have to continue our surveys and censuses, and we believe that official statistics will still rely heavily on these surveys and censuses. But the way we collect the data to feed actually the needs for the statistics that are based on surveys and censuses can be revisited, right? And we have seen many good practices during COVID-19 where actually the data were not only collected through computers assisted methods, but through telephone and computer assisted methods, for example, so that you don't need to have a face-to-face with a household when, for example, you go for a budget survey, a household budget survey, or any other kind of labor force survey or something like that. Then the last one is about data processing and related technology, because something that non-statisticians forget is that once you have the data, you still don't have the statistics. You have to process the data. So it can be machine learning in some cases, but it can be also, I would say, traditional statistical processing. And this traditional statistical processing can actually apply to big data, right? So basically, once we have the data, we have the access to the data, we have acquired the data, we need to process the data. And this is the production process that is well illustrated into the GSPPM. I don't want now to discuss the GSPPM, but we can understand that this is core. So what we want, of course, because we want to be fast, but still to be of high quality and disaggregated, we want to put in place or reinforce or enhance efficiency and effectiveness of production processes, as I mentioned, for timely disaggregated and high quality statistics and indicators, right? Whatever the process that we put in place, that the appropriate one for the data that we have acquired, we had to be efficient and effective. And of course, on top of that, it has to be a process that is replicable. So basically, I do it now, but I do it next month or next week, and again and again. Replicability, when it comes to data sources and data processing, is very important, and they go together. If I develop a method that is resilient and agile to produce statistics based on innovative data sources, I need the data every month, for example, and have in place a process with the technology that is going with, that is also available monthly to produce the statistics, because I get a mandate from my government to produce this information, and I cannot come to the press conference or to issue a press release when it's time to produce, for example, the price statistics and tell guys, unfortunately, this month and most probably the sixth next month, I'm not going to have price statistics, right? Modern technology and IT systems supporting resilient and agile production processes I just mentioned now. So this is something that is important, and this is actually the three main modules we are going to work on. But now if we look a little bit at this, of course, we saw that we call them actually outcomes in our jargons, right? But I mean, we have basically three main outcomes. One is institutional and environment of a national statistical system and relationship with the data community. And then we have two other one that I call 2A and 2B, one on data sources and collection methods, and the other one on modern technology and related processes. These one are cross-cutting horizontal one. But we also thought that we don't want to remain too, I would say, abstract and away from statistical domains. We need also to see and to test if for a specific statistical domains, the reality of these different outcomes should be slightly adapted. And that's why we also thought that we need vertical modules that would be related actually to the different statistical domains that we have identified could support a better recovery from the COVID-19. I can give you a few, I mean, during the discussion, even though we are still in the process to discuss which statistical domains, what should be the horizontal one and the vertical one, but I can tell you a little bit more during the discussion, right? So, what will be the outputs? The outputs basically mean the result. What do we have to offer for each of these different modules? The idea, of course, and we know that most probably you saw that the project is going to start in 2022. I'm soon at the end of the presentation, so we'll be able to go for the discussion. I mean, the output, I mean, it's quite clear that we will probably not be in a position to travel as usual, still not. So we'll continue to work heavily on the development and deployment of e-learning courses and material. We will, of course, have online, in-person, blended, I mean, as applicable workshops, seminars, but also what we call now advisory services that before we called advisory missions. We'll still have advisory missions when we can, because we cannot stop totally, I mean, activities where there is in-person contact. But I mean, some of the advisory services specifically dedicated to a target country. Like, for example, I speak now from my own domain, developing the statistical legislation. Instead of going to the country and interacting and working there, we have tried as much as we could to do that, I mean, remotely. And that's why we call it advisory services now and not only advisory missions. But there is also the development or adaptations of existing or new guidelines, methodology, handbooks, tools that would benefit not only to the countries that we have identified before as the target countries, but more generally to most of the countries. And then inventory, documentation, and sharing of good practices, which is actually the important element for the South-South cooperation. We will work heavily on that. We will know, for example, we will try to have an inventory and share it of all countries, including developing countries that have used for the production of official statistics, not in the testing phase only, but monthly, quarterly, annually, big data for the production of official statistics, how they have combined that with regular, I mean, data sources for the production of their statistics, for example, tourism statistics. We want to document that. We want to share it on the web so that actually countries that are looking for these solutions can identify which country has a success story, approach also that country, and get support from that country. So this South-South or the triangulation cooperation is very important there. And the implementation modalities, Very important for the different outputs that we have there, or activities that we will put in place, is that each activity is implemented jointly by at least 3 entities. You remember we have 8, at least 3 entities. We don't want a program where every entity is implementing alone. It doesn't make sense. Then we can go for a traditional way. It's a one UN activity. So at least 3 entities together. One of those, of course, being the lead, depending on the topic. Activities can combine various outputs and outcomes. So we can have an activity where we develop e-learning courses and at the same time make an inventory and share good practices. And activities should target demand from developing countries. We're also here for that today. To understand better what are the needs, the challenges, and how we could address them. Here now, my last one, the question to be discussed, but I just mentioned now that to you. What were or are the major challenges for official statistics during the COVID-19 crisis? I put R because we were hoping when we started to work on this DA14 statistics and data to be nowadays already in the recovery phase, but we are at the moment not really there, right? Or at least for our developing countries, they are not there. The second one is, could emerging demands for policymakers be met? Why? Also, yes, why we could, why we could not, what was hampering there? When we got these requests from policymakers, for more official statistics, for more statistics and indicators to help monitoring the impact of the COVID-19 and eventually a recovery policy. And how could the project address these challenges and emerging demands for statistics and indicators? Just one point, of course. I will take note of the points that you're mentioning. We're going to discuss that. I cannot promise you, you have seen also the amount with that we are going to address them all. But I think that the discussion that we're going to have now will help us to better understand what are your needs and fine tune actually the orientation, the main orientation of the project that is there, that is already based on your explicit or implicit demands that we have received. Thank you very much, Alexander. Back to you, and eventually after that, back to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for this presentation and outlook on what is to come. I have now switched on the possibility for all attendees to unmute themselves and also to use the camera. It's always nice to see the faces of who is speaking. Maybe let me start with one question which I saw by Goulart in the meeting, in the webinar chat. And I don't know if Goulart wants to come in, otherwise I can, it's a very short question. So which countries will the program cover? You have mentioned already some more general things, but are there already maybe some ideas which countries, regions might be included, which maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, thank you. It's already, I understand what is behind the question, right? Of course, we will have to make a little bit of selection, and that you can understand. We're going to take countries, just to tell you a little bit how we're going to work. The idea is to start each activity, or most of the activities, some could be slightly different. With a online, blended, or in-person workshop or seminar. During this workshop and seminar, we're going to explain a little bit what are the main activities or output related to that specific activity. Check with the countries if this is well aligned in general with their needs, but also at that moment to ask countries to express their needs. Now, out of that, the countries that will be selected are the countries that on their side have already started something. We're not going to take, most probably, you can understand we have 4 years and limited funds, and we want our activities to be also to some extent success stories that we can then present to the others that didn't get our support, maybe to replicate as much as possible. We cannot replicate everything, but to replicate what was done. So that's why we're going to choose countries that have started an initiative, right? And we can actually jump on that and support them. So this is something that is important. Otherwise, we will try to be well balanced. Of course, we have the small islands developing states, we have the landlocked developing countries, and we have also the least developing countries that will be the target countries. Now, for other activities like the seminars, the workshop, and things like that, all countries are invited to participate. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Then there's a question by Tanya Seryasin. Tanya, maybe you would like to come in? Tanya, are you still there? I didn't check. Well, in any case, so Tanya was basically asking, so what is an agile National Statistical System? You have mentioned already some of the points there, but yeah, maybe we can also see, so how do we check on that? Okay, Tanya says her microphone is not working. Sorry for that.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand the question, and also see this one from Sean. I mean, about guidance on use of agile. Government has great guidance on the use of agile in government services. Okay, how making government services more agile to produce data and information. The thing I wanted to mention, I mean, he can express his concern or whatever his comment before. I mean, first of all, what I wanted to mention is that we use often the word resilience only and alone, right? No, Sean, you can come back. You can go to, yeah, it's open. We are open and transparent. Resilience is the capacity actually to resist and be able to come back to the initial position, right? We know that the resilience of a material, it's a word coming from physics, is actually the capacity of metal to absorb the shocks without deformation, so without change, eventually at the end of the process. We are using this word and we are making sometimes a confusion about that. No, we don't want only to come back to the initial position. We want to understand how we could improve and how we can even better respond to the needs during a crisis. So to be agile actually is to change the way we are working, not only to come back to a normal position after the crisis, but to be able to better address or better face and, I would say, raise the challenges of future crises. Can be natural, can be sanitary crisis, can be economic one, and so on, but also to quicker, and this is the importance, to be quick to address the demand of demands that are still not here now, right? And on that's why it's mainly based on how are our institutional and organizational setup and frameworks organized so that we can respond quickly. Who is actually governing and taking the decisions in that moment? Everybody cannot run in all the discussions. We have to be coordinated when we respond to this. But we need also to develop statistical processes that are interoperable. So that means that they can connect. And I like this kind of, adapter that you have for when you travel, when you push different things, and actually they go as well to South Africa, like Latin America and Asia and Europe and the North America, exactly like that. Production processes that in specific situation, if very quickly you have to change a data source, your processes in your IT infrastructure can support this. This is what I call agile, right? Yeah, I responded to Tanya. She said resilience is different than agility. Exactly. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's
I
my answer.
have checked once more.
I hope Tanya is okay with my answer. To measure she wants to measure that. I mean, let's ask the countries maybe to tell us, I mean, how to measure this. It's a good point. I don't think that we have to be stubborn and be only, I mean, looking at how we are going to measure this, right? But I mean, this is a very good point. How are we going to measure that? Unfortunately, agility we will be able to measure it when we will have the next crisis and how national statistical systems will react. We can make them ready, but if this is going to work, we will have to see in the future. Only the future will be able to tell us. So this is another thing. The project is now, but actually the benefit of the project might be also for the future, right? After the end of the project itself.
Thank you. I have checked once more the meeting settings. So now really everybody should be able to unmute themselves. So I see the hand up from Taimur. Taimur, please go ahead.
Yes, sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, all good.
Yes, hi. I'm the economist in the RC's office in Botswana. Yeah, I'm sorry I joined a bit late, but I think I caught most of what you were saying on agility regarding statistical systems and so on. I think it's a fair point, and I think under normal circumstances, I mean, we can try to sort of encourage NSOs to sort of change their institutional behavior. I think at the same time, as you know, it's not easy to change uh, behavior within organizations, right? Like we know this from our own experience at the UN, that shifting or being agile or responding to crises, we've often fallen short, right? And we're at the same time trying to encourage the governments to be more agile. So I think institutionally, how institutions are set up, how they behave, is a long-term process, right? I mean, their change and so on, and of course, if we do have some ways to sort of respond quicker when the next crisis comes along, of course, we work with them closely to try to change that from I mean, to repeat the previous um, like response in a sense. We obviously like to strengthen and improve aspects. Now, the example of Afghanistan comes to mind because it is a real-time case, and I've been approached by colleagues there to sort of help with the economic analysis on a pro bono basis, uh, and the first thing I realized is that the sort of people who were working on data, the World Bank, for example, have closed all their projects. They've gone. Uh, so much of the institutional sort of setup that was there in place to collect the statistics and so on, again, those workers aren't there. So I think, I mean, each context is sort of unique, and we need to then figure out what are alternative ways we can work like around these issues. And I think like agility of government institutions is one thing, but then also some like responsibility, or some of it is also on the international setup. Have we set up enough robust systems in place that in case there's a failure on the government side, we can step in and maybe help out, or have some system that is aligned with the government one and can work to complement it, And I think that's the idea, I guess, of institutions like ECA and SCAP and so on, where we do have large like statistical teams and so on. So I was just wondering, I mean, when we look at real-time cases, we need to sort of, I mean, when we say agility, we need to apply it to sort of real situations, right? Rather than ones that are imaginary. So that's my basic point. And when I try to apply it to cases like Somalia or Afghanistan, or our sort of largest programs like South Sudan, often I'm not quite sure what agility would mean in those contexts. Over.
Thank you, Timur. Gabriel, should we take maybe one
Yes,
or
because
two?
also what I wanted to say, I mean, thank you very much for this comment, because the other one until now was we're asking question, how are we? Very good. Thank you very much, because I wanted to hear from you proposals, right? How can we, I mean, how we will be able to do it? I mean, I forgot. Thank you very much. Timur was speaking. Is that right? Was it
Yes.
Timur? Yes. Thank you very much, Timur. I forgot to say, of course, that countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Lebanon, Somalia, etc., will be countries, I mean, that we are, maybe not all of them, but we will try to use also some of these countries, right? I mean, to develop agile, or propose agile system. Of course, I mean, when you develop something, it's always ex post and hope ex ante that is going to work, right? But I mean, we are going to work on these countries, and thank you very much for telling us that. I forgot to say, and ESQA actually will be strongly involved in that. They have a very good experience on that. Yeah.
Okay. So I will continue in the list of the hands as I see them. So Sushil, please come in.
Okay, thank you, Alexander, for the time. First of all, thank you, Gabriel, for your presentation. My name is Sushil Sharma, Director of the National Statistical Office of Nepal. My just one query and sharing is that in Nepal now we are conducting the housing and the population census, which was postponed 2-3 months before. Now the activities are going on. And in the first time, we are developing the community, one of the community questionnaire in the population census. That questionnaire will be filled in every ward, which is the lowest administrative unit of Nepal. And in that community questionnaire, we have the infrastructure service provided, and one of the module is the environment. Basically, it is related to the disaster because Nepal is one of the disaster-prone country. So my concern is that this data, when the data will be available within 6 months, it will be very useful for the strengthening of the environment statistics of Nepal, because I am working on the leading the environment statistics section of the Bureau. So can I request and for this about the technical and other support to strengthen this by using this information for the capacity development and the institutional development? Is it possible? Just it is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushil. Gabriel, you want to take it right away, or you want to react right away?
I mean, I fully agree. I mean, it's not much. I mean, it's not much. Yes, it's not only your concern; it's our concern, right? From the statistical community, or the data community, and also the policymakers. You're totally correct, and this is something you will have to address. Just to tell you, I mean, in the activities, we are one specific activity in this project that is about disaster and climate change. Right, so this is a very important one, and this one is going to be most probably led by ESCAP. So you're in the right region. On top of that, it doesn't not mean that only Asia and the Pacific will benefit from this activity. Not at all. You remember, at least 3 entities will work together to implement it, but ESCAP is going to take the lead. Yeah.
Thank you. Then I see Grace. Grace, would you like to come in?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for such a detailed and great presentation in the Times. I'd like to mention or to add that citizen-generated data could be also considered among the non-traditional sources, because in Uganda we've already developed a guideline for development of citizen-generated data, and we are launching in October and will bring together civil society institutions and private sector entities and take them through this tool to complement the official statistics. So I thought it could be added on the list of the big data and other data. But two, also we are challenged with the COVID pandemic in a way that when you start a statistical activity, for example, a survey or a census, you are interrupted by lockdowns according to how the pandemic changes. So the statistical activity takes longer to complete than usually, and the dynamics of analysis, putting together the report, dissemination of the findings, and how the findings now change. You could have collected data maybe 4 months away, and then you do the processing, another 4 months is staggered, then you bring out the results another 4 months. So there are those challenges. I think is something that we can explore and seek guidance as countries from the UNSD and the fraternity. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, for that. I like the word fraternity. This is a beautiful one. Thank you very much. Yes, citizen-generated data is on the list. Actually, there is one specific activity within this project that is called innovative data sources, and there we have citizen-generated data. As you know, Grace, there are other initiatives where UNSD and other partners are involved, I mean, to work together on citizen-generated data. I'm aware of what you have already done there, and it will be used, reused. We're not going to reinvent the wheel in this project. That's not the point, right? Is to bring things a little bit together, to bring consistency and coherence to all that. That's a very important point. And yes, citizen-generated data in these specific situations are very important. This is what I wanted to say. Second point to your intervention. We have a population register or statistical population register. That is one also activity that was proposed within this project. So basically is that knowing that in some cases administrative data also were strongly affected during the COVID. We all know that, I mean, people did not go to register birth and death systematically to the authorities during COVID-19. So basically, one source of information for population and demographic statistics, including in some cases for censuses, was missing. So the idea is that statistical office try to use as many sources as possible available, innovative sources or traditional sources, I mean, to compile such kind of population register so that they would be able at least to have a general information or trends on population during this kind of crisis. So this is exactly the idea, because to rely only on one data source is not the best thing to be agile, right? To be agile by definition, you should rely on 2 and maybe even on 3. That would be best. Thank you very much. I don't know if there is one more.
For now, yeah, so to encourage once more all the participants, especially from countries or from UN country offices, if you have suggestions, what could be included into this project, please go ahead and give us your input. Right now, I don't see any other hands. But yeah, go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe not like in the next few days, but we could have a specific group in Yammer maybe on this DA14, so that we keep the things alive and we continue. I mean, with this was a first attempt, right? And I'm very happy from the feedback I received, but that we can continue our dialogue, but that we can also make announcements. on things that are going to happen with this project, and also maybe attract the interest of other partners, organizations, bilateral partners. I mean, that would join us, or that we could join them to deliver better in a more efficient and effective way. So this is a proposal. Also, in the meantime, they can send me an email. My email address is there, right? I mean, Gabriel. Sorry, I mean, that's my private one. Gamez at gamezg at un.org, and I would be very happy then to reply and continue this beautiful dialogue that we have started there.
Yeah, we have one more comment here in I see in the meeting chat from Harir. Excuse me if I don't pronounce it correctly. Harir, would you like to come in and ask your question yourself?
Thanks, Alexander, and Gabriel again for this amazing presentation. I think my question was on the point, right? By the way, I work in UNICEF in Eastern and Southern African Regional Office in Nairobi. One of the basic things when COVID came, I mean, we were still asking the same question around the situation of children. But the point was, how can we reliably and validly generate those with the remote modes? And we were actually didn't know. So that kind of experience and what is the extent of this remote mode of data collection can still validly generate some of the key statistics is an area I think there's a lot to develop. So any experience around that would be appreciated. Over.
I'm not sure if I got it fully. I mean, can you just maybe in a few words, I mean, Alex or maybe our colleague to repeat?
Can you try
just
to
quickly? I mean, I'm not sure I got. I had a little bit of an issue with the sound. So.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, my point was to the extent that the remote mode of data collection with phone or CATI and so on and so forth that you mentioned, and the experiences of countries in going out there and still able and still trying to generate some of the key statistics on social statistics, economic statistics in that regard specifically, and the reliability and development of these methods to do that. So I was just saying from UNICEF perspective with the COVID, we were still asking the same questions on the situation of children, but we were not able to generate that from the standard or more regular sources of census and surveys. So the question was, can we still ask about, let's say, the impact of COVID on violence against children? Can we still ask if children are, violent or disciplined at home and so on and so forth with those approaches? And the question is, we don't know. We didn't know if those would work still, and most of the time we might not, but we still need to develop that kind of takes.
Yes, and I will answer at the end to your question when I go quickly through the list of the activities we had in mind, and this will be my last point. I just want to react again to some of the comments there that are actually confirming or going in the same direction as what I mentioned. Yes, Tanya, we will work on examples coming from LDCs, LLDCs, and seeds, as I mentioned. This is very important. We need to document them and we need to share them. This is fundamental. And then looking beyond the NSO or official statistics, this is also something we are going to address. And the first one, look at the activities, values of official statistics. We know that during a crisis nowadays, unfortunately, we have information. Yes.
Did you share the slides? I can't see it.
No, I didn't share the slides, but I will share the slides later on. Can I?
Okay.
Just, oh,
no,
I need to share it now.
No, I mean, I thought you had a last slide with the activities that you were planning.
No, I didn't want to put it because we are still in the discussion.
Okay.
So
No,
I mean,
just
of
go
course
ahead.
it's registered, but if it's written, it's written. Value of official statistics. We have values we have to discuss, and we have seen during the crisis that we have a lot of fake news. That we need to put a stamp of something that is called, sometimes the word is maybe not so nice to call it official, but I mean the value of official statistics. What makes the difference between official statistics, and it's not related only to the NSO and the other information. And this is very important in times of crisis. What are the information that are reliable, that are based on facts, and what are the other one? So we are going to discuss that. How can we secure that? Because we have seen behaviors that were against actually what could be called reasonable, based on fake news that was circulating and the fact that it's difficult sometimes to really understand what are the values of official statistics. There is something about NSD's governance and quality, and again, as I mentioned before, relationship and data stewardship, right, with the rest of the data community. Innovative data sources, that's a general one with all kind of new data sources, including citizen-generated one. Household survey innovation, all new way of conducting household surveys. We have the population register, statistical register. We have one on ICP and PPPs, and then we come more now on the, I would say, on the domain statistics. How can we continue to produce price statistics? And it's an important statistics in terms of social stability, right? And unrest. I mean, price statistics during a crisis is fundamental, but also the comparisons between countries. Disasters and climate change. Informal, I mean, this one will probably change, but we have one on Earth observation for the environment, right? Including, I mean, informal activities. We have one, and this is an answer to the question before, on big data and gender, but it could be also extended to big data and children, right? Or that actually it's big data and gender violence. How can we measure, if we can measure gender violence through big data? So we want to understand that a little bit better, and maybe we could actually link this also with citizen-generated data, because often these events actually are best reported by the people themselves, right? Everybody is not going to the police, or even administrative data is sometimes weak. We have another one on circular economy and oceans in terms of recovery, and a few other ones that are probably going to come, but we are still in negotiations with 8 entities. So I will be able to give you the list of what we have there at a later stage, but we will definitely take into account your comments, your remarks, your questions to fine-tune these activities. Thank you, Alex. Back to you.
Thank you, Gabriel, for the summary of the events which, or the projects which are planned within this development account project. There was still a comment by Tatiana from UNICEF in the meeting chat, but I think we are now at a little bit past the allotted time. So I would like to thank you, Gabriel, for this presentation and for this outlook. And maybe last time I forgot it, but maybe I can motivate all attendees to unmute themselves and give you a big round of applause for what you have presented.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And we will share the slides after the event, and so you can also reach out to Gabriel, and there will be also the email address. Thank you.